Hello, my name is Sharon Fritchie, and I'm going to talk to you guys today about a little bit about digital age and plagiarism and how the two are interacting together to create kind of a dilemma for us teachers. We're going to start here with what is plagiarism, and very simply put, it's the practice of taking someone else's work or ideas and passing them off as one's own. And this is taken from the Oxford Dictionary. I mean, that's kind of what we're having happen nowadays is anything that's found on the internet is being considered common knowledge when it's not. So there's a fine line, and where that line is to be drawn is kind of left up in the air. Is it up to the teacher? Is it up to the student? Is it up to the university that they're learning at, or the high school? Where does this line need to be drawn, and how to help children have or students have the understanding they need is something we need to start to work on as teachers. And so the digital age's view on plagiarism is basically reached a cut and paste. Students are just pulling things off the internet because they consider it common knowledge. It was on the internet. Shouldn't it be counted as common knowledge? It's basic, simple things that are out there. Why not? So trying to figure out where to draw the line is a bit hairy right now. Is that we're working our way through what we need to teach our students. Knowledge is at our fingertips. We can research anything. We can Google all kinds of information. I know I personally have done many times during the middle of a conversation and we're discussing whether something is or isn't happening, or whether something is true or not, or we forget some music artist's name, or whatever the case may be, and we just sit there on our smartphones and Google information. Oh yeah, that's right, okay. And we just take it and run with it. We don't think about where we got this information from. Same thing with social sites and chatting sites. You can sit on those sites and chat and talk to each other. No one knows where we're getting this information from. We could be discussing anything. And unless we teach students what reliable sources really are, they're not going to know the difference. We have to teach them these things. This is something that students need to start learning as early as middle school, not waiting till college to make sure students know this information. And same thing goes for websites that promote causes. Any website that you go to for organic use or for medical reasons or whatever is going to have knowledge out there for the students, but is that source reliable? Is this a person's blog? And maybe the person has knowledge in that field, so they can present information as common knowledge. But for a person who doesn't know who's the source is from, we don't have a way of saying yes, this is a reliable source, even though it came from so and so's blog. Or a quote that they say are they quoting someone else and just not giving the credit to that person? The internet has created a lot of problems as far as how to help students figure out what's common knowledge and what's plagiarism and when to cite things. And this is just going to be more and more hairy as technology becomes easier and easier to use. As we move on, according to the University of Pennsylvania, what is common knowledge are things like statistics and data figures, studies done by others, references for specific facts that the average reader might not necessarily know about. Those are things that we need to teach our students to cite. Those are things that we need to go back to the source and say thank you for this information, in a sense, by letting people know that when we share this information, we got it from so-and-so. So that's kind of something those are the basic, quick, easy ways of telling students what to cite. What is common knowledge is kind of a bit of a hairy thing. You can go anywhere on the internet and find information, so isn't all of it common knowledge? We need to teach students that common knowledge is knowledge that would generally be known by the person. If you're talking about water freezes at 32 degrees, that's a general global common knowledge thing. That's something that everyone would know. When you're talking about cultural groups, everyone's going to have special national holidays and names of famous heroes. Those are going to be general knowledge. It's not necessarily something that you quote. Facts about a famous hero, that might be something that a student should quote. Knowledge of that person, not necessarily. It kind of depends on how they're presenting the information. A group of engineers are going to get together and they're going to chat about something as if it's common knowledge, and not everyone around them may be aware that's common knowledge. You're going to want to know where that information came from. Just like what I have presented here to you, this whole lot of information, I cut and paste from this website from Pennsylvania University. So this is my knowledge for you guys to have an idea of what's out there. But I'm not taking the credit for this. I'm giving the credit to Pennsylvania's academic integrity site. This is where I got the information to help show you guys how to present to your students what's common knowledge and what's something that needs to be cited. And as long as we show students how to give credit back to the source, then we avoid the whole concept of plagiarism. We need to make sure students realize that what's the difference between common knowledge and what needs to be cited. And that's very hard to do with the digital age right now. And this gives us a little bit better idea of how exactly to ask students to cite things. Moving on to our next thought process here is a study that was done by Mao, Liu, and Turner called the Empirical Investigation of Digital Cheating and Plagiarism Among Middle School Students. Shows us some causes. And with their research, they were able to kind of see, they interviewed middle school students, and they were able to see why students choose to cheat, choose to plagiarize the different things. And one of the first things that most students said was cut and paste is just easy to do. It's simple. I can just cut and paste it and then I'm done. No big deal. It's out there on the internet. It's common knowledge. Why not? The other thought that they had was peer pressure. All my friends are doing it. It gets it done. So why not? Why shouldn't I do it too? Everyone else is. Those are the two biggest reasons that Mallow and Turner found for students to cheat. But that it does not help any at all for us teachers that there's websites out there that offer completed papers and ways to cheat. It's out there, the students are using it. We need to help students see how that is not using the best abilities of the internet. The internet is out there to help us gain knowledge, not to help us cheat on things. And if we help students see the difference, then we're going to be better off. The other things that students quoted as having issues with the causes are a lack of punishment. Teachers just don't care anymore. It's too difficult to catch plagiarism, so why even look for it? So there's no punishment when it happens. And then also students sometimes have that pressure to achieve. They like to get good grades. They like to be moving on to the next thing, so why not do the best I can through a cheated paper and move on so I can move on to the next task, or I can make it to the soccer game tonight, or I can do more things if I just cut and paste and get this done and not take the time to cite it properly. Which is a shame that our students have that kind of pressure on them, but we need to show them easy ways of keeping track of their sources so that they can properly cite. And that's up to us teachers to model that behavior and show that to them. When teachers were interviewed, they reported that students did not grasp the concept of plagiarism. Students really did not know the difference between what should be cited and what shouldn't be cited. So the knowledge isn't even there, so they're not doing it. They're not bothering to take the time to do it because they don't understand the concept completely. We need to make sure that students understand the concept of what needs to be cited and what doesn't need to be cited so that they can avoid plagiarism more easily. And it's also too easy for students to cut and paste. That was the biggest thought that the teachers had was, you know what, they're going to do it. What do we do with that? It's going to happen. Cut and paste is just out there and easy to do. And as teachers, we need to grasp a firmer ground and stand firm on the fact that you do that, there's going to be a punishment. There needs to be consequences so they're not as easily enticed to cut and paste when there's consequences for their actions of doing such things. So that's kind of on us teachers, and as a school, you need to look and see, do we want to have a set policy on this? Do middle schools even have that set in place to where they can reprimand the students that are doing this when they are caught, and how to set an example to make sure that it's not being repeated? So what do we do now? The most effective way of dealing with plagiarism is not through rules or codes, by actively addressing issues through instruction. Engaging students through inquiry-based learning can help them develop ownership of their learning. Rather than requiring students to submit traditional essays and research papers solely for the instructor to read, they should be offered multimedia ways of presenting and sharing information with a wider audience. This is a quote that I took from Everly and Moore's article they sent out in 2012. They had a unique idea. They felt that if you engage students in the learning process, they're less likely to plagiarize. Whether it's a topic that interests them, or whether you change things up and instead of having students just write papers and submit them to you, have them do a presentation to the class. Make it more interesting and fun, liven things up a little bit. One of the things that they talked about in their article was the fact that students are writing papers for a teacher to grade. And the teacher is the one with the knowledge of the topic they were given. So they have this pressure to achieve and the pressure to do it right and how to do things in a way that's going to make it stand out for a good grade. One of the things teachers can do to help prevent that pressure is to do a rubric. And like Everling and Mormon had pointed out, was that it's having them do a presentation versus a paper, or offer them another way of presenting to you that they have the knowledge of the topic that you're trying to get them to understand, is a way to help the students not to plagiarize. Educating students is what it really means to plagiarize, is going to be our biggest asset in teaching them academic integrity, in a sense. The difference between common knowledge and something that needs to be cited is something many students do not understand. And they need to be made to understand this. They need to be shown the difference and taught how to understand what should be cited. And then teaching them how to properly cite something is going to be key. Working with them and helping them, engaging them in activities that are going to help them cite their papers properly is going to be something that's going to make it easy for them to do, so they're not so frustrated and set up with pressure to cite things. They're going to be more likely to do it if they understand how to do it. Engaging them in lesson plans that will actively teach skills they will need for proper citing is going to just be huge in helping this concept of plagiarism diminish a little bit. And it's not enough to tell a student how to do something, but we have to create the experience. One of my favorite quotes is, "If you tell me, I will listen. If you show me, I will see. If you let me experience, I will learn." We need to let students work with plagiarism and work in a way that helps them gain understanding in order to allow them to use the knowledge that we're trying to put in front of them, so they don't necessarily plagiarize. It makes it a lot more difficult to plagiarize when they understand something. And then this is the handout that I'm leaving with you guys. This shows you a little bit of what is plagiarism, but I also included a little bit here on accidental plagiarism. That's something we do need to be careful of as teachers. If students don't have the knowledge of what plagiarism truly is, there's going to be chances they're going to plagiarize by accident. And we need to know that if we're going to reprimand plagiarism, we need to understand the difference between deliberate plagiarism and accidental plagiarism. And here's a couple things that will help you with that. And then also just reminding you that education's the answer. Teaching them how to cite things, teaching them the difference between common knowledge and something that needs to be cited. I include these 3 resources down here. These are 3 sites that I visited that I absolutely loved, that had lesson plans on plagiarism. They gave us different worksheets and examples of how to show students the difference between common knowledge and plagiarism, and how to paraphrase and be able to cite sources properly. It had different activities for them to do, even had some cool little PowerPoints that talked to them in some of the tutorials on plagiarism, and giving the students some knowledge they need to understand what plagiarism is and how to cite things are going to be your best assets in avoiding plagiarism in your classroom. So I really appreciate all your listening, and just to cover myself and to show you guys some academic integrity here. These are the references that I used, the articles from Everling and Moore, the case studies and investigation that I read from Ma, Liu, and Turner are on there. Also, I included the links that from the pictures that I used that I pulled straight off the internet. But here are their sources and where I got them from, and this is the link to the website to Penn State's Pennsylvania University, so you can see the academic integrity site where I got my knowledge from. So thank you for listening, and I hope all of this information was very helpful. Talk to you soon.